Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It's absolutely fantastic to welcome you here. I am quietly contained and excited, which is very unusual for me. Normally I'm excited and uncontained, but I've actually just got it nicely under control, and I'm feeling on the brink of a really exciting week. We're all here because we know about phosphorus. I'm not going to rehearse the issues. We all know the context and the importance of that, so let's move swiftly on from that. I just wanted to spend a few minutes with my colleagues setting the context, setting the big picture, and perhaps opening our eyes to the landscape that's around us as well and where we are here in the world. It's fantastic to welcome 100 of you from all over the world, and I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome you here today. So let's just put this in context. This started as an ad hoc, really, series of meetings which started back in 2003 in Ascona in Switzerland, and then more recently we had a bit of a gap till 2013 when we had a meeting in the Republic of Panama, and here we are 3 years later now in the Lake District, and things have moved on. The world is perhaps a little bit more interested in phosphorus today, and it's also a very busy schedule for the world of phosphorus. And we're really thrilled, really, that we had to close the door at 100 delegates for this meeting, because it's a very niche subject and a very exciting one too. I want to just make this a little bit personal before I step back and let the week unfold. I want to talk to you about my context and my place in this meeting, because with the team of people, it has been very much, my thing, really. I want to tell you a little bit. This is important to me because of the organic phosphorus, because that's really the core niche home base for me, really. I work on soils and waters, but organic phosphorus is where I get really perhaps most inspired and most excited. But also, it's in my homeland, which is, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful places in the world, here in the Lake District. It's where I grew up, it's where I live. I've been away, but I've come back again. And for various reasons, it inspires me, and I hope it does the same to you. Reflecting back, I did my PhD in the Lake District. I never seemed to get very far away before I come back again. And this was the place where I did it, at the Institute of Terrestrial Ecology, Merwood Research Station, in the late 80s and the early 90s. And it was set amongst this landscape that I started my journey. In those days, perhaps had a little bit more hair. I perhaps did a little bit more field work than I do now. Perhaps got in the lab a little bit more than I do now. Certainly did that. But there was one thing which takes me way back. I actually started out working on selenium. But one of the things about working on selenium was that at that time my co-supervisor was this person who is the named middle author here on this paper, one of my early papers, called Anthony F. Harrison, otherwise known as Tony Harrison. And Tony was my supervisor. And at the time, I used to sit around at coffee in the lab, and Tony used to talk about organic phosphorus. And he used to talk about it incessantly. We used to joke he had like a plug-hole mind where everything would go to organic phosphorus, and everything would go round and go into organic phosphorus. And it kind of got into me at that time. And of course it was very inspiring and exciting to be around Tony, and I moved on. I was working on selenium, and I moved on, and I found myself working on phosphorus myself. And I took it on. I moved away to Devon, and I worked with some other people, some young students here that you may recognise. On the left is Ben Turner and Richard McDowell. Here we are tramping the foothills of Slapton, doing a bit of field work in those early days. So some of these people are here now. We all get a little older. But one of the things that we found out in those days, I was working on phosphorus in soil and water, which is what I kind of still focus on, really. I kind of got really annoyed that everybody seemed to be obsessed with phosphate and inorganic P. It kind of irritated me that a lot of the phosphorus seemed to be in an unreactive, non-molybdate reactive form. And then we found it, using a technique, HPLC technique, we found inositol hexaphosphate in leachate under our grassland, and we were very excited to be able to do this. And it's a little story really, just putting it in context of my journey and where I've come from. So although I work on soils and waters and phosphorus, I've always been interested and I've always paid attention to the soil and the water and the organic phosphorus. Here's a little bit of unpublished data. We've been doing some work looking at numbers of phosphorus around the world with a whole bunch of colleagues there. We haven't published this yet, but thought I'd share with you, if you just take a very broad brush picture of all the phosphorus in the world, approximately, the numbers might not be quite right, but approximately, if you look at stocks in the terrestrial system, not in the oceans, just in the terrestrial system, about 40% of that phosphorus is in the soil, okay? The brown bit at the top there. And about 60% of it is what we call new phosphorus or geologic P that's coming in from the mines, and a very small amount is being recycled or moved around to water. Now just remember that amount in the soil. 40% of all those 14,600 million tons of phosphorus are actually in the soil. And recently I was involved with my colleagues, a paper led by Mark Stutter, and Mark did a meta-analysis of organic phosphorus forms in soils, looking at the data that he could find at the time, and we published this work, and it showed that, that there indeed was, as we all know, we're all converted. There's the diester P, the monoester P, really existed and does exist, of course, in quite high amounts, particularly at least in agricultural soils, which has been my particular focus. And as a rule of thumb, we determined from a study about 60% of agricultural soils phosphorus in this country is in an organic P form, whereas only a little tiny bit of it is in these plant available forms. It's quite an intriguing number. 60% of the soil P is in the organic P form. Now, in a world where we're thinking about phosphorus scarcity, that's just something that rings in my ears, really. We've got some challenges ahead and some opportunities, maybe. Anyway, that's my lecture. That's what you're going to get from me formally. I just thought I'd just set a bit of personal context. Now to matters practical, to adjust to the week of the workshop that we've got here. Just a few things I want to say to you, sort of changing gear here now. So we're going to be doing a bit of filming tomorrow. One of the PhD students that works with us, Malika, has got a film crew coming. She's making a film about her experience with phosphorus and so on. She may be asking some of you to contribute to camera. Just a pre-warning really that's going on. If you could support Malika, that would be great. I'm going to be taking photos. Others are going to be taking photos. If you don't want to be in them, get out of the way or let me know. I'm putting them on Twitter or on other social media sites using a hashtag OrganicP2016. There's already been a bit of activity. If you're not into that, that's fine. If you are into that, it's a great way of sharing stuff, and it's a really nice way of sharing material. So please do that. Let's get that hashtag trending. Let's fill the world up this week with Organic P 2016. Looking at my watch. Timing. We've got a busy schedule, and our chairs have been instructed to use this shepherd's crook, this Lake District shepherd's crook, to bring you in if you're running over time. So here it is. This is the crook for the week to bring you in to keep to time, please. The poster sessions, can all the poster people get their posters on the walls around the room, please? And we're going to have escalator sessions where we're having a 1 minute carousel presentations on posters, 1 minute, one slide, the first of which is later this afternoon. And Mark and Martin are going to be getting you up in order to do that. So please be ready to keep to time, and to do that, the chairs have been instructed to keep you to time. We're working in breakouts. We're working towards a common publication. Tim will be saying more about that later. We're aiming on a special issue in Plant and Soil and a group paper in Biology Letters. 60% of us are staying in the hotel. And those of you who, and you get dinner and breakfast and everything if you stay in the hotel. If you're not staying here, you're the other 40%, you're staying nearby, you still get lunch. If you want at any time to book dinner here, there's about 20 spare. You need to arrange it yourself with the hotel. There's about 20 or so spare seats at the table, or you can get it in the various bars. And we have a great social program for the week, which involves all sorts of activities, music, games, different colour-coded clothing and all sorts of things. And in particular, a very inspiring Wednesday afternoon session, which is a great prompt for me to invite my friend, my colleague, Professor Simon Bainbridge, to speak to you for a little while, to talk to you about why what we're going to be doing on Wednesday and some of the activities there.
Let's hold that.
I'll hold both of those. Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to your workshop. Welcome to the Lake District. Welcome to what's also known as Wordsworth Country. So my name is, still says Simon Bainbridge. I'm actually Professor of English Literature at Lancaster University, and Phil and I have worked on a number of projects and schemes together. One of my areas of work is the poetry of William Wordsworth, and I particularly work on Wordsworth and the Lake District. So what I'm going to be doing on Wednesday is to be leading you on a walk around Wordsworth Country and taking you on a visit to Dove Cottage, Wordsworth House. So I'm just going to say a few words about why we're doing that, what we hope you'll get out of that, and then I'm going to read you a poem, and then I'll leave you to get back to the science. So I'm sure, as many of you will know, William Wordsworth is one of the greatest poets in the English language, and he's very much associated with this part of the world. Wordsworth is born in Cockermouth in the northwest of the Lake District. He has many of his boyhood adventures on Windermere, the lake just across the road outside this hotel, and he's particularly associated with the areas of Rydal and Grasmere, where he produces his greatest works, his greatest poems, some of the greatest poems in the English language, and where he lives for the last 50 years of his life, and where he dies in Rydal. So that's the area that we're going to be exploring on Wednesday. Wordsworth, of course, is well known as a great nature poet. He celebrates many of the geographical features that I think you're interested in. So he's very interested in rivers and lakes and mountains. So some of the poems I'll read you as we walk on Wednesday. We'll tell you a bit more about Wordsworth's responses to the natural landscape around us. He's also very interested, like I believe you are, in soil, the idea of soil. He was a keen gardener, Wordsworth, and he uses the metaphor of a better soil quite a lot in his writing. So the idea of a rich soil which will help us grow, he sees as absolutely central to the way he thinks about his own work and the way in which he thinks about the people of this area, who he thought grew up sort of fostered by a better soil. And one of the key elements that we hope you'll appreciate on Wednesday when we go on the walk is Wordsworth's sense that this environment is a very special environment, as Phil has already said, and he felt it was an environment which made him the person that he was, that it shaped him and made him into the great poet that he became. And interestingly, Wordsworth is also responsible in a way for the environment as it is now. Not only did his poetry popularise the Lake District, but it also helped preserve it. So the National Trust was an organisation formed by disciples of Wordsworth, who began by buying Wordsworth's house, Dove Cottage, as a treasure for the nation, and that's one of the places we'll visit on Wednesday afternoon, and then they formed the National Trust to preserve initially the Lake District, and then a whole set of areas around the country. So what we're going to do on Wednesday is we'll take a walk through Wordsworth Country. It's one of the most beautiful low-level walks, I think, in the British Isles, one of the nicest parts of the Lake District. On that walk, I'll tell you a bit more about Wordsworth. I'll tell you a bit more about his interest in the area. We'll read some poems. And I'll be able to take you to some very special places. One of the interesting things is Wordsworth writes very much about particular places. And we'll be able to visit, for example, the place where Wordsworth has what he tells us was the most important vision of his life. So we'll be able to go to that spot, stand in his footsteps, and look at the landscape, which he felt was the most important vision that he ever had. So we'll be able to do that. We'll also be taking you to Dove Cottage, which is the house that he lived in from 1799 to 1808, the house where he wrote his greatest poetry, including his autobiography, The Prelude, including poems you might know, like the Daffodils poem, I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud. So Phil, I think, as the week goes on, will tell you a bit more about the logistics for Wednesday. But if you'll bear with me, I just want to finish by ending with a poem. so that you get a sense of, if you don't already know, a sense of what Wordsworth sounds like, or one of the things Wordsworth sounds like. And this is a poem which contains some of Wordsworth's key messages. It's a poem called The Tables Turned. And in this, he is advocating the idea of putting away your books and getting out into the natural world. And his argument is that you'll learn much more from being out in the natural world than you would do from, he says, wise men or sages. I'm sure you'll learn a lot from the various wise men, wise women and sages that are here. But his argument in this poem is you'll learn more from the natural world, from the bird song, than you would from reading books or listening to wise men. So I'll read this poem out. It's about 20 lines, so not too long. I'm sure people will be familiar with the vocabulary, but it includes references to the throstle and to the linnet, which is, I'm sure you know, are birds native to this region. So it's called The Tables Turned. Up, up, my friend, and clear your looks. Why all this toil and trouble? Up, up, my friend, and quit your books, or surely you'll grow double. The sun above the mountain's head, a freshening lustre mellow, through all the long green fields has spread his first sweet evening yellow. Books, 'tis a dull and endless strife. Come hear the woodland linnet. How sweet is music! On my life there's more of music, there's more of wisdom in it. And hark how blithe the throstle sings, and he is no mean preacher. Come forth into the light of things, let nature be your teacher. So by Wednesday you'll have had a lot of books, you've had a lot of wise men. It'll be a chance for us to step outside, for you to come forth into the light of things and to kind of experience Wordsworth country, both through a walk and through a hearing of the poetry. So the weather forecast looks good for Wednesday. It looks like it's going to be the best day of the week. So hopefully we'll get that sense of the sunshine Wordsworth's talking about there. And I look forward to seeing you all then. In the meantime, hope you have a fantastic workshop.
Thank you, Simon. Before you go. Thank you. Excellent. Okay, well that's wonderful. I'm really excited about Wednesday. So just to finish, a credit really to a great team. To mention all the folks there that have been playing a role in taking us through to this day, which is they've been fantastic. It's been a pleasure to work with them, acknowledge them, and to acknowledge also the wider international committee who have helped advise us as we've gone through the various iterations of the programme and visited this venue in the past. We have a number of people helping this week. Catherine Waring, she's doing registration. Catherine, are you in the room? If she's in the room, she's probably on the registration. No. Daniel, can you stand up? You're doing presentations. Thank you, Daniel. Martin Blackwell, can you stand up? Martin's in charge of the posters. So hey, Tim George. Tim, he's in charge of breakouts. You'll hear all that in a minute. And Courtney Giles and the team. Where's Courtney? She's in charge of the social programme. And I think she wanted me to tell you that this evening we must go to the Mariners Bar. There's a special bar just along from the hotel there. So she'll tell you more about that later. So some special thanks to Courtney on the left there. At the top there, there's Charlie Shand. So Charlie has he edited the abstract book, and on the bottom right, a fantastic flattering shot of Tim George, who really has been my sort of right-hand scientific sparring partner, setting this one up and getting it going. And some really personal thanks from me to Daniel and to Catherine, who really, I know, have really sweated the last few days and have been fantastic to work alongside. And thank you to the Opus team and BBSRC that have funded this week. So thank you. Have a great time, folks. And I'm just going to hand over now to Tim George, who's going to say a little bit more about the breakout groups and operations.